Hello folks, today I'm going to be taking a look at a prototype for Legends of Signum, and it's the Kitsune of the Scarlet Forest. Okay, so this is the Kitsune clan of the Scarlet Forest for Legends of Signum from Signum Games. Now, this is a prototype starter box, so it does tell you prototype there. It also tells you exactly who the Kitsune are and what happens in the Scarlet Forest. So this is a fantasy skirmish game. It's played on a board, so it's like a hybrid of a board game and a skirmish game. I think is probably the best way of putting it. This box contains everything you need to play and weighs a fair bit. So what have we got? Tokens, cards, including the rules for the miniatures, then the miniatures bases, and a ton of resin. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a fish, it is a fish, 6, 7, and 8, so 8 resin miniatures, and then we also have dice, cubes for tokens, equipment, the game mat, and rules, tokens to use for your forests and rocks, so that's your terrain. We also have some additional tokens, measuring sticks, and at the bottom I believe we have the rulebook. So plenty crammed in here. So what I'm going to do is assemble these, and then we'll come back and have a look at everything in more detail. Okay, I'm back, and let's take a closer look at the Kitsune clan of the Scarlet Forest, which is for Legends of Signum by Signum Games. So I'm going to start off with the paper and card part, just to get through that and to sort of explain how the game works, because that is important. You get essentially a double-sided quick set startup guide. Explains your phase, actions, combat mechanics. This is about an A3 size. On the other side, how to set up your battlefield, what the various cards and symbols mean. So that's handy. On top of that, you get the rulebook. Now this is the Cursed Forest, which was their last run. I don't know if this book needs to change or will change. The only real difference will be the models and images in here are themed towards the Cursed Forest. But it's a 67-page book, full colour throughout, and also you can download the PDF of this in full from their website and from the Kickstarter as well, I believe. So it explains all about game setup, additional variants, because there's a PvE where you play against a randomized overlord. There's also a multiplayer version and some quest versions, as well as the standard PvP, sort of one-on-one or one against many. So there we are, 68 pages of goodness. And really nice book. We get a game mat. So again, this is themed for the Cursed Forest. Full colour, nice design, in keeping with the miniatures. This goes from a diabolical purple to a more healthy green side, and is about 2 foot square. Now, tokens are 2mm cardboard. Some of these are actual game components from because they have the dies now from the previous Kickstarters. Other ones, like these new minion counters, are prototypes, but it gives you an idea because I've seen the prototype versions of these counters and the terrain in the previous one. So the quality is just upgraded onto the 2mm card. We know they can do the design work and the printing. Speaking of which, a couple of rocks, a couple of forests. These are played in-game as part of your turn to sort of impede your opponent so they don't start on the table all the time. Well, I'm sure there are some versions where they do. The terrain also comes with the relevant cards. Like I say, they can be played in and it tells you what they do. There are also some specific terrain pieces for specific factions that are available to buy in when you're constructing your deck. We'll get to that. Apart from the minion tokens, there are also all of the wound tokens, armor tokens. Again, all 2mm heavy duty cardstock, semi-gloss or satin finish on them. Very nice. And there are also dice, and in this case little counters, so little 5mm gem cubes. And the dice are bespoke, so if you are playing, it's very simple. A bullseye is for ranged attacks or magical attacks. An axe is for melee attacks. And a shield is defense. And sometimes they will modify depending on who's doing what and what they're doing it with. So sometimes a shield and an axe may both count as successes, or sometimes only one. So, we come to the end of our cardboard, and this is where Legends of Signum varies slightly from other games. It's partly a deck building game. So, you do two things when you're playing. You build your city, and you also summon creatures, characters, and minions to help you in your fight. So when you're playing, you have, 5 buildings you can choose from, and essentially you draft a mini deck before you play. So you can have a library, city hall, shooting range, school of magic, tavern. There's a choice of 9 standard buildings that are available to everybody, and these tell you things like when you tap this, your characters can declare a, not sure what that is, without line of sight until the end of your turn. So whatever that, presumably a magical attack of some description. Your characters gain Master of Shooting 5 until the end of your turn. So the way you build your city will have an impact on what you can do on the tabletop, and vice versa. They all have their own unique symbol up here, and when you're summoning things, you'll be required to have certain buildings to do that. The Kitsune clan also has their own. So they have the Star Temple, the Temple of the Heavenly General, and the Ancestral Temple. So these can be substituted in place of one of your standard buildings. So it varies up how your game plays. And all of these are viable when you're playing and will give you different options. So you could play the same list multiple times, but with using different cards and different decks constructed, you get a very different gameplay style coming through. So having a look at the deck, when you build these, you're building to, 20 to 40, and they can contain various things. So here we have a piece of equipment, so the Helm of the Sun Goddess, summons Kitsune clan of the Scarlet Forest, Minion is that little symbol there, so that was the tokens we've seen, to contact with your hero, and that's the hero icon. So that you get 2 of each of these. So you get a mixture of equipment and also, I suppose, tactics, that type of thing. A chosen character gains initiative and +3 attack until the end of turn. Now, apart from those sort of tactics, abilities and loot, there's also a little cheat sheet card here telling you about the new types of creature, the minion, and also all of the various types of symbol you may find on the cards. But on to the fun stuff. More cards. I'm only kidding you. So these cards are your actual game pieces. So in this case we have Fumiko, the Sorceress Princess. There's her stats and abilities. So it's very simple. Blue is your movement. So short in this case. 15 health. And 2 dice when it comes to fighting. How many relics you can have and what type of relics they can be. Any special rules. And a nice bit of artwork. And then if I bring in her miniature, you can see she's a rather grandiose figure. Set that out of my way. Absolutely exquisite detail. You can see there on the back of the chair. Many tails, probably 7. I can never remember how many Kitsune are supposed to have. Very simple to build. Shockingly simple to build. The front leg attaches just at the thigh there where the robe meets. One side of the chair is connected to the back, and then the other side is connected to this arm, which then goes in just under the shoulder here. And then the head is one piece, and this staff, which I need to straighten out, is also one piece. But absolutely exquisite detail. These Kitsune, they're all on large 50mm bases, and they're all sort of ogre or werewolf sized, if you're familiar with that sort of size of model in other games. So sitting down, she is 42mm to eye level, and she's seated. She's also one of the smaller models, but we'll get into that in a moment. So moving her out of the way, we have Kyoshi, the warrior of the river spirits, and he's a cavalry figure. And he is mounted on a koi carp. You can see why I've kept the camera quite far back. Sensational detail. Join here at the base, just across the fin. And then lots of little detail throughout, so things like the, I'm not sure what they're called on fish, but the tash, to give that sort of catfishy whiskered look. Again, I could straighten out that staff, but I quite like all the kinks in it. There is another one of these on the Kickstarter that I haven't seen the model, but it's a fighter rather than a caster. But again, very oriental feel, lovely detail on the resin, and just went together like a dream. You might want to leave that hat off so you can get into paint, because there's quite a lot of detail underneath on the rest of the face, even though it's obscured. Or you just black prime it and then don't worry about the fact that you can't see anything underneath. I like the fact the top of the staff is a little seahorse. Then next up we have Benjiro the Silver Voice. And there's a few of these that are leaning into their mystical nature. So he's playing a, don't know what it is. I keep wanting to say mandolin, and I'm sure it's not. However, he's playing one. He's also floating. In this case, helped by all of his tails sort of curving around the back. I like how they've done that. It lends to sort of mythical, fantastical nature. He also has designs running throughout his clothing, so you don't have to paint on all the individual flower petals or things like that. So there's a wealth of detail in these models. He floats around about 65mm to the eye, maybe 68. And again, utterly gorgeous model. I love how they put their models together as well. Hiding joins. So for example, the front of his snout or muzzle is actually separate to allow them to cast it like that. And then it just glues on, hidden by his sort of tash, I suppose. But yeah, Benjiro, lovely. We have Suburu, the herald of the Kitsune clan, who is this very militaristic looking fellow. And again, beautiful detailing, scroll work all the way along his katana's handle, yin-yang symbol emblazoned on his shoulder pad, and then just some intricate detailing on the banner. So if you're not a professional painter with a lot of time on your hands, you can get away with doing a very simple paint job on these because there's so much detail on them. This one has the first sort of noticeable slippage. It's just behind that, unfortunately. It's just on his thigh, coming up to his knee. So that needs a bit of a clean up. These have had minimal clean up just to get them together. But overall, the quality of casting is excellent. The tails are a bit explosive on these models. They're everywhere. So you will probably find more flashing on the tails than any other part. The rest of the models tend to be quite crisp and clean, but the tails you may find bits in between where they've put sprue gates in. So if you are getting these, keep an eye on the tailage. We have our smallest, which is Shun, a scout Fennec, so a little Fennec fox. And again, another one of these, probably not floating this time, but leaping, using the tail as a counterbalance to have this tiny fox with massive ears and a sword to boot, just coming right at you. This was probably the fiddliest one for me to glue on. The two arms are separate, the hands are attached to the sword, but getting the arm in the right position to know where the hands needed to be, because there was a little bit of wiggle room on the build. In fact, I hadn't got that one quite square. If you're not building to time constraint like I am, you should definitely take a bit more time to line that up. But even then, a bit of putty in there and nobody will be any the wiser that I rushed it. Again, gorgeous figure. Love the big hooped earrings in there, and the huge flowing ponytail with the metal ornamentation at the back. So even when there's not a lot of clothing or armour on the model, there's still plenty of room for detail on them. I need to clean up that sword a bit as well. There's a little bit of flashing there, but otherwise very nice. Coming down to our last couple of, I'm going to say, regular size models. We have Takumi the Warrior Poet. Now, Takumi actually came with a choice of 3 arms. It's the only one of the models I've seen they sent that has choices. There may be others in the Kickstarter. So it could just have a pointing arm, could have an arm with a scroll. I chose to go with the arm with 3 doves being released. And again, wonderful detail, very crisp casting, and this superbly ornate cloak. And even that sword that's sort of sitting between the divides on the back of his cloak, going right through there. Really, really nice. I like the Warrior Poet. Now, we have Yutaka, the Elusive Archer. So, again, another off the ground. It's a nice way that they've sort of balanced out the static poses that you would often see with archers. It has a very sort of manga or anime feel. Bow is attached to the far hand, which means you could straighten that out. You could also add bowstrings if you want. But leaping off there. Bit of a seam line down the scabbard or quiver. I suppose it's a quiver, actually. That should be cleaned up without too much effort. Just a sharp knife and away you go. Lovely wood grain detail on the bow, really makes him stand out. And it just has that feel of sort of Hong Kong cinema, if people are aware of it, where they lean into the wushu. Very, very jumpy, very leany. A lot of the mythical going on. Also quite like his tuning fork hat. There must be a reason for that. There are a few more cards. These cards are for the minion tokens, so these tokens. Now, I think they've already unlocked one, but I know from previous Kickstarters, the Cursed Forest, that they replaced the minion tokens, or they made available small resin minion models to be used in place of the tokens. So these are sort of an optional extra. You can use the tokens, or assuming they get far enough, hopefully we'll see all of these various minions replaced. I think there's 2 at the moment, there might be 3, but you'll get a sort of a smaller scaled goblin sort of sized little fox of some description to be your Minion Spirits. Now, the Piester Resistance, the avatar of Inari. I thought this was originally going to be another hero. However, this is not a hero, this is a character that could be summoned by your hero. And oh my god, it's enormous. Floating on a celestial cloud like all good oriental dragons should, and with that really distinctive whiskered face. And it just twists its way up. But yet at the same time it still fits within a, I want to say that's an 80mm base. I was correct, it is an 80mm base. So the footprint is particularly small on the tabletop, but you get an incredibly impressive dragon. And on top of it is one of our Kitsune, carrying a, I'm not sure the name of that, halberd-like creation. However, it's made of bamboo, so there's little ridge lines on it, which should be fun to paint up. If you want to paint it up like bamboo, or you can paint it up like lacquered wood. Again, I still need to straighten this out, you can see. But it's resin, so straightening it isn't an issue. Both the Kitsune on the back has got detailed work on the, I think it's kimono. Could be wrong, I know there are a couple of different types. This long flowing sash. Sitting side saddle and demurely with the fan. Again, very important part of Oriental culture. But then the dragon is utterly stunning. Not a huge amount of detail on the scales, just enough they are, I suppose, beveled or cantered. So you've got a piece of scale going in either direction, and then you have these little fins that fit in all the way round. And then the 2 sets of legs. There are a few joins that would need to be masked with putty. So middle of the body, there's that's the most noticeable one there. I didn't quite align the pieces correctly, but even if I had got the alignment bang on, I think there's still going to be a slight gap on that one. The other one down here, you can see has come through the fin, but again, a bit of putty and away you go. If you're building a model like this, a couple of joins that need to be filled is not going to be a major issue, but overall the casting on this was immaculate, so shouldn't take much to get it together. And the detail in there as a centerpiece is utterly stunning. I know they will release these separately, so even if you're not planning on playing this in the game Legends of Signum, you should be able to get it elsewhere. Height-wise, the dragon is 140mm tall to the top of its neck, I suppose. And then the rider is about 55. Yeah, utterly stunning centerpiece. And I can't believe she's just a character. Maybe she'll get an upgrade as the Kickstarter develops. But with things like the Celestial Dragon and the Koi Carp Riding Wizard, it's definitely a different set of fantasy miniatures. And I think if anybody's interested, they should definitely check out the Kickstarter while it's running, because you can get yourself a bargain on that. They will be available then subsequently from Legends of Signum. They may even end up being available on their 3D printing site as well. I don't know yet, because they're still building that. But there we have it. That is the Kitsune clan of the Scarlet Forest. All right then, so there we have it, the prototype that's on Kickstarter now. A gorgeous set of miniatures, but then I expect nothing less from Signum Games at the moment, to be brutally honest. If you're not planning on playing Legends of Signum, I think an awful lot of people are going to be picking these up just to paint anyway. Or alternatively, instead of your humdrum, boring old werewolves, perhaps a Oriental-themed army, and replace them with Kitsune instead. Anyway, let me know what you think. The link's below for the game and for the Kickstarter, so you can go over and have a look at it yourself. Until next time, bye-bye.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.